The Book of the Second Death, Episode 2. Charlie awoke with a start, his breath quickening as the last vestiges of the vision faded from his mind. The hall of the departed was still dimly lit by flickering candles, and Julian sat across from him, his eyes closed in meditation. The air felt heavy, dense, with a weight of something unseen yet palpable pressing on his mind. For a long moment, Charlie sat in silence, attempting to clear his thoughts, but the unease within him only grew. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. His vision had been vivid, a glimpse of the abyss, a threshold that felt all too real. But the voice that beckoned him, it wasn't inviting. It was commanding. He glanced at the lone monk standing near the entrance, his face bathed in shadow. Charlie's instincts, honed by decades of navigating the labyrinthine world of rare books and antiquarian circles, screamed at him that this was not right. This monastery, this ritual, it didn't feel like a genuine test. There was something too rehearsed, too staged about it. Julian opened his eyes, exhaling deeply. "Did you see anything?" he asked in a low whisper. Charlie hesitated before answering, his gaze still fixed on the monk. "I don't know. Maybe. It felt wrong." Julian's brows furrowed. "Wrong? What do you mean?" Charlie shook his head, leaning in closer to avoid being overheard. "It felt like I was being led somewhere I shouldn't go, like it was a trap." Before Julian could respond, the monk stepped forward, his expression inscrutable. "You have meditated well," he said in a calm, even tone. "The truth will come to you in time. But now, you must rest." "Rest?" Charlie echoed, trying to keep the suspicion out of his voice. "Is that part of the process?" "The path to knowledge requires both reflection and rest," the monk replied, his voice steady but distant, as if he had delivered the same line to countless others before them. Julian stood, his eyes narrowing. "And what happens after we rest?" "You will be given the next step," the monk said, bowing his head slightly. "The journey is not over." Charlie exchanged a look with Julian. Something was off, and they both felt it. But for now, they had no choice but to play along. They followed the monk through the darkened hallways of the monastery, the sound of their footsteps echoing in the stillness. Eventually, they were led to a small chamber with 2 simple beds and a single candle burning on a stone ledge. "We'll summon you when it's time," the monk said, before disappearing into the shadows. As soon as the door closed, Julian turned to Charlie. "I don't like this." "Neither do I," Charlie admitted. "This doesn't feel like a real test. It feels like we're being kept busy, distracted." Julian nodded, pacing the small room. "I've had this nagging feeling since we arrived. This place isn't what it seems. And that monk, I've dealt with enough gatekeepers to know when someone's holding something back." "You think they're stalling us?" Charlie asked. Julian stopped, staring at the flickering candlelight. "I don't know, but I do know that if Singh and Price are still out there, we're losing time. If this isn't the right monastery, then they could be one step ahead of us." Charlie sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing his temples. "There's another possibility." "What's that?" "This whole thing could be a setup," Charlie said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "What if Singh already knows this isn't the right monastery? What if he sent us here to keep us off his trail?" Julian's eyes widened as the realization hit him. That bastard! It makes sense. He's ruthless enough to do something like that. Charlie nodded grimly. And if that's the case, he's buying himself more time while we're stuck here chasing ghosts. Julian clenched his fists. We need to get out of here. Now. Later that night, after the monastery had fallen silent, Charlie and Julian quietly gathered their belongings. They had no intention of waiting for whatever next step the monks had planned. Moving through the dimly lit corridors, they retraced their steps back toward the entrance, careful not to draw attention. The air outside the monastery was cold, biting at their skin as they descended the steep path that led back down the mountain. They had only been walking for a few minutes when a figure emerged from the shadows ahead, Dorje, the local fixer who had led them here. You're leaving, Dorje said, his voice carrying a note of understanding, not surprise. Yeah, Charlie said. This isn't the right place. We've been had. Dorje nodded slowly, as if he'd expected this conclusion all along. You're right. This monastery was never the true destination. Julian stepped forward, frustration clear in his voice. Then why bring us here? Why waste our time? Because Singh paid me too, Dorje said bluntly. He wanted you here while he continued his search for the real monastery. Charlie's jaw tightened. And you went along with it? Dorje shrugged. I have to make a living, but I'm telling you now because I don't want to be caught in the crossfire when things start going south. Singh is dangerous, and this book you're after, it's more than you realize. Julian crossed his arms. Then why are you telling us this now? What changed? Dorje glanced around, as if ensuring they were truly alone. Because Singh is close to finding the real Shivoham, and if he gets his hands on it, you won't have a chance. The book, it's cursed. Not in the way people think, but those who've come too close to its secrets have all met terrible ends. Charlie exchanged a look with Julian. What do you know about this book, Dorje? The fixer hesitated, then spoke softly, almost reverently. The Shivoham, the Book of the Second Death, was created centuries ago by a Hindu sage, a yogi who claimed to have crossed the boundaries of life and death. It said that he wrote the book as a guide for those who sought to transcend the cycle of rebirth and attain immortality in the spiritual sense. But the knowledge in the book was dangerous, and not all who read it were pure of heart. Some sought power, others control over death itself. Over time, the sages who guarded the book decided it was too perilous for humanity and sought to erase its existence. Julian raised an eyebrow. So, what happened? Dorje's eyes darkened. For centuries, the book passed through secret hands, hidden by those who swore to protect it. But each time it resurfaced, disaster followed. Kingdoms fell, scholars went mad, and treasure hunters vanished without a trace. Some say the book is cursed, but it's more than that. It's a test of the soul, and few can bear the weight of its truths. Charlie's mind raced, piecing together the fragments of history. And Singh, he doesn't care about the consequences, does he? No, Dorje said. He only cares about what the book can give him, and if you don't stop him, he will find it. Julian let out a long breath, his gaze hardening. Where is the real monastery, Dorje? If we're going to catch Singh, we need to know. Dorje glanced up the mountain, then back at them. There's another monastery, older and far more secluded, deep within the mountains. It's called Drakmar, and it's hidden in a valley that few have ever reached. That's where the Shivoham is. Charlie frowned. Why didn't you take us there in the first place? Dorje sighed. Because Drakmar isn't like other monasteries, the monks there are different. They don't take kindly to strangers, and they guard their secrets fiercely. Getting in won't be easy. Julian smirked. Since when has this ever been easy? Charlie, however, remained wary. What's your angle here, Dorje? Why help us now? Dorje's eyes softened, and for the first time, Charlie saw a flicker of something genuine in the man's expression. Fear. Because Singh is ruthless. I don't want to be the one responsible for unleashing whatever that book contains. You have a chance to stop him, to make sure it stays hidden. Charlie nodded slowly. Then take us to Drakmar. Dorje exhaled, nodding in agreement. We'll need to move fast. Singh is already ahead of you, but if we're lucky, we can beat him to the monastery. The journey to Drakmar was arduous. For 3 days, Charlie, Julian, and Dorje travelled through narrow mountain passes, crossing rivers swollen from the spring thaw and trekking through forests that seemed to grow darker the higher they climbed. The air was thin, and the cold gnawed at their bones, but they pressed on, driven by the knowledge that time was running out. As they approached the final ascent, Dorje paused, pointing to a narrow path carved into the side of a sheer cliff. That's the only way to Drakmar. It's treacherous, and the path is often blocked by landslides. If Singh is already there, we'll have to be careful. Charlie nodded, his eyes scanning the distant peaks. Somewhere beyond the jagged ridges,